All right, so today we're diving deep into this whole story about the Philadelphia Eagles and their decision on whether or not to visit the White House after winning Super Bowl LIX.
Yeah.
It brings up some pretty interesting questions about like sports and politics and social values all kind of coming together. It's tradition for Super Bowl champs to visit the White House, but things are a little more complicated this time around.
Yeah, I think what makes it even more interesting is that this whole situation is like adding to the tension that already kind of exists between the Eagles and President Trump, especially after they didn't visit back in 2018. So it's definitely not just your average photo op, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And this isn't even just about one team or one president. It really speaks to this bigger conversation that's going on right now about athletes and their role in society.
No, absolutely.
But before we get too deep into all of that, let's rewind to the Super Bowl for a second. The Eagles completely destroyed the Kansas City Chiefs. It was 40-22.
Right, yeah, it was a total victory. And it's pretty cool to see how this team, especially with Jalen Hurts leading them, has really captured the city's attention. During the championship parade, Hurts actually spoke directly to all the fans about how much of an honor it is to lead the team and their dedication to the city.
Yeah.
And I think that bond between the team and the city is a big part of why they're making the decisions they are.
Yeah, I think you're right. That connection definitely seems important. And even before the Super Bowl happened, people were already kind of whispering about a potential White House visit.
Right.
Reporters were asking Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie about it, but he wouldn't really say anything.
Mm-hmm.
He just kept saying that he was only focused on the game itself.
Well, I thought it was interesting how he avoided the topic, don't you? It's almost like he knew that it was going to be a problem even before they won.
Oh, totally. And then all of a sudden, boom, the U.S. Sun comes out with this report saying that the Eagles are going to skip the White House visit.
Right.
And based on their sources, it sounds like pretty much all the players were in agreement about this.
Yeah, the report mentions an anonymous source from within the Eagles organization, and they confirmed that there were actually discussions about not going.
Wow.
And actually, a few weeks before the Super Bowl, a member of the ownership group was quoted saying, if we win the Super Bowl, we wouldn't go to the White House.
Huh?
So it really does seem like they had already made up their minds.
Yeah, and one of the players even mentioned that pretty much everyone on the team was on the same page about it. But there's this one quote from an unnamed Eagle star that really gets to the heart of the matter.
Right.
He said, "We represent a city and a state that is pushing for equal rights, respect, and values that respect every human being. We won't forget what happened and the criticism we received for taking a stand against racism, and we won't back down from our values of respect, integrity, and equality."
That's a powerful statement for sure. It directly refers back to what happened in 2018 when the Eagles also decided not to go to the White House during Trump's first term. And back then, a lot of the black players chose not to go. This new statement suggests that they've been consistent about their stance on social justice issues and that they're not afraid to stick to their values.
And we can't forget what was happening back in 2018.
Yeah.
I mean, this was when those national anthem protests were at their peak. Players all over the NFL were taking a knee to protest racial injustice and police brutality. So when the Eagles said no to the White House visit back then, it was a huge deal.
Oh, absolutely. And the Eagles' decisions, both in 2018 and now, they raise a really important question. What does it mean when athletes, especially black athletes, choose to make these kinds of statements?
Yeah.
It goes beyond just saying no to a visit. It's
Right.
about showing that they're standing with a movement that's fighting for social change.
Right. They're choosing to use their platform to make a statement.
Yeah.
And it's pretty interesting to see how that's happening again now, even with a different team and a different Super Bowl win.
It's bigger than just one team or one president. It's about this kind of shifting dynamic. It's like this push and pull between tradition and politics and the role of athletes in social justice movements, which is becoming more and more vocal.
So after the Eagles declined that White House invitation back in 2018, Trump tweeted that he was canceling the event. And in that tweet, he also criticized players who stayed in the locker room during the national anthem.
Right.
He was basically implying that they were being disrespectful to the country. Remember, it caused a lot of controversy.
Well, that tweet said a lot, didn't it? Instead of just accepting their decision, Trump decided to make it seem like they were being disrespectful. He tied it to patriotism, which just added fuel to the fire of this whole debate about race, sports, and national identity.
Oh, definitely. It felt like he was trying to control how people saw the situation and appeal to the people who think athletes should just focus on sports and stay out of politics.
Yeah, his reaction, maybe even more than the Eagles' decision itself, really opened up this bigger conversation about who has the power in these situations. Like, who gets to decide what's patriotic? And do athletes lose their right to express their political views just because they're in the public eye?
It feels like a turning point where more and more athletes are saying, no, we're not going to stay silent. We have a voice and we're going to use it. It's definitely challenging how we've always seen the lines between sports and politics.
And the Eagles are right there leading the way. They're showing everyone that they're committed to their values, even if it means getting criticized or going against the norm. They're not just talking, they're actually doing something.
So this whole decision to skip the White House visit, it's not just about one event.
Yeah.
It's part of this much bigger story about athletes being activists and how the role of sports in our society is changing. It's about power, representation, and who gets to define patriotism.
Absolutely. You know, it's really interesting how what the Eagles are doing is kind of showing us how this whole relationship between sports and politics is changing. For a long time, it was like this unspoken rule that athletes should just stick to their sport, but that's obviously changing now.
Yeah, totally. More and more athletes are realizing they have this huge platform, and they're choosing to actually use it to speak out on social justice issues and raise awareness and even challenge the way things are.
You got athletes like LeBron James talking about racial injustice, or Megan Rapinoe fighting for gender equality, or Colin Kaepernick kneeling to protest police brutality.
Yeah.
They're not just athletes, they're activists who are using their influence to actually try to make a difference.
It's pretty inspiring to see. And it's not even just in the U.S.
Right.
All over the world, athletes are taking a stand on all kinds of things, from climate change to human rights. The lines between sports and politics are getting blurrier and blurrier every day.
Yeah, and that brings up a pretty important question. Like, is this blurring of lines a good thing?
Right.
Some people say that athletes should just focus on their sport and leave the politics to the politicians. They're worried that it'll turn off fans and take away from the entertainment part of the game.
That's a fair point. I mean, there's definitely a chance of losing some fans. But then again, maybe this is exactly what we need. Athletes using their platform to bring attention to important stuff that might otherwise just get ignored.
Well, think about the potential impact. These athletes have massive followings, and they can reach people all over the world.
Right.
They can educate people, inspire them, get them to take action in a way that politicians often can't.
And, the Eagles' decision isn't completely unheard of.
Yeah.
Remember back in 2017 when the Golden State Warriors didn't go to President Trump's White House after they won the NBA championship? That started a similar conversation about athletes being activists and the role of sports in politics.
Exactly. It's an ongoing conversation, and the Eagles are just the latest chapter in it. It's like a reminder that sports aren't separate from all the political and social stuff that's going on in the world.
But it's interesting, though, because the Eagles could have made a totally different decision. They could have gone to the White House and used that opportunity to talk about what they believe in.
Yeah.
Right to the president's face.
That's true. Choosing to actually talk to the people you disagree with can be a really powerful thing to do.
Yeah.
But it also comes with its own risks.
Right.
The Eagles obviously decided that making a symbolic statement by not going was a better way for them to show they're standing by their values.
It also makes you wonder about how effective different types of protests are.
Yeah.
Like, is it better to try to engage with the people you disagree with, or to take a stand that draws a line in the sand?
Well, that's a complicated question. There's no easy answer. I think the best way to go about it depends on what's going on at the time and what the goal of the protest is. In the Eagles' case, they probably felt like talking to President Trump wouldn't really lead to anything and might even make it seem like they agree with him.
Yeah. By not going to the White House, they've made it very clear that they're serious about social justice and that they're not willing to compromise on what they believe in. It's a bold move.
Yeah.
And people are definitely talking about it.
It's a good reminder that athletes are more than just entertainers. They're citizens with their own thoughts and beliefs, and they're more and more willing to use their position to speak up to those in power. It'll be interesting to see how this all keeps playing out, both in sports and in the wider world.
It feels like things are changing, and what people expect from athletes is changing too. It's not enough for them to just be amazing at their sport.
Right.
Now they're expected to be role models and speak up for change and stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that puts a lot of pressure on them,
Yeah.
You got fans who want them to speak out, and then you got other people who think they should just stick to sports.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough spot to be in.
So what do you think is going to happen in the future? Will we see even more athletes becoming activists, and how are fans and teams and even sponsors going to react to that?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but I think we're definitely going to see more athletes getting involved in social and political issues. It just seems like that's where things are heading, especially with younger generations being more vocal and expecting their idols to actually share their values.
Makes you wonder how this could change the whole sports industry.
Yeah.
Will teams and sponsors be okay with athletes speaking out, or will they try to shut them down? I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot at stake. Money, reputation, the whole 9 yards.
I think it's going to be a mixed bag. Some organizations will be totally cool with it.
Mhm.
They'll see the value in supporting athletes who are using their platform for good. But then you'll have others who will be more hesitant. They'll be worried about alienating some of their fans or getting backlash from sponsors.
A tricky situation for sure. No easy answers. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But one thing's for sure. Athletes have this unique ability to connect with people from all different backgrounds.
Oh, yeah, their stories and experiences can really resonate with people. It doesn't matter what their culture is or their social status or even their political views.
Right.
And that gives them a real chance to help people who aren't being heard and to challenge the way things are.
And to inspire the next generation of athletes and activists.
Exactly. They can show young people that it's okay to stand up for what you believe in, even if it makes people uncomfortable or causes controversy.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you really want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that sports aren't just about entertainment anymore.
Yeah.
They're a reflection of our society and our values and all the problems we're facing. And as the world keeps changing, so will the role of sports and the athletes who play them.
It's definitely an exciting time to be a fan and a citizen. We're seeing a real shift in power, and it's going to be fascinating to see what happens next. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. I hope it's given you something to think about when it comes to sports and politics and how they all connect to social change.